happy to join you. I am in New York, just outside New York City, and we have been in the news quite a bit. We're kind of self-absorbed at this time, but happy to actually visit Cambridge. This is the closest I've made it, so pleased to be invited and see a few friendly faces, and hope that there might be something I can share that will spark some conversation and action on your part for a good future, creating a future. I was able to listen in to what was said previously and experience some of the things going on. And if it's okay, what comes to mind is, well, I guess it was about 19 years ago, 18 years ago. I've been in, where am I? New York for about 25 years. And one of those days, for a long time, I worked in Midtown Manhattan and had a nice full floor office in a high rise, 33rd floor. And the situation now reminds me a little of what took place on 9/11 in New York. I was in Manhattan, and somebody said, look out the window. And so we looked out and we couldn't quite figure out, couldn't comprehend what we were looking at. A black, smoky kind of circle on one of the buildings down there. And as we were looking out, we saw another plane, and we saw that crash. Saw two explosions, actually. One where it hit and kind of went sideways, and then where it came out on the other side. So kind of bang, bang. And we realized something was up. And in the office, we had TV and radio, and so kind of what was happening, and all sorts of misinformation was coming out. They said other planes were flying around. And at that moment, I recognized that my life might be in danger. And so all of my thinking process kind of was drawn down into myself. And the basic question that was floating around our office, are we in danger? Is there going to be a plane that hits our building? I was in the Grace building, if you know that one. It's probably about 44 stories or something like that. We were on the 33rd. And not the highest and not the biggest landmark and not the most easily targetable. So had the decision that, no, I'm going to stay here. Going outside made no sense because they shut everything down. And so I was able to have that awareness that I was going to be okay. That was the decision I made. And that's all I thought about at that moment. And after that decision, I looked out the window and, smoke, and realized I know people down there. And then all of a sudden, my thinking and my awareness moved from myself into what I'm going to call another ring, the next ring out of consciousness. That, hey, I know people down by the World Trade Center, in the buildings, in that neighborhood. Wonder how they're doing. And then kind of after that thought went through and registered and processed, couldn't really call anybody. Then I realized my consciousness expanded again. And it's like, there are people who are probably thinking of me, that they're going to hear this and they know I'm in Manhattan and they're going to worry about me. And so if you know any of the details, the planes knocked down the antennas for cell phones locally, but they didn't knock down the cell phones for long distance. So in the office, we had, computers and phones and TVs and radio. And so I just made a call. And actually, my mom was alive at that time and said, whatever you hear, it's going to be okay. I'll be fine. So I kind of took that out of my mind, that I didn't have to think of her or worry about it. And she could call people and let them know. And then there was this other ring beyond that, that there are people who are outside of my immediate family that I've had conversations with. And so I kind of sent out some emails to someone and said, yeah, you can share this with your contacts in the world. And so I was communicating throughout the day with individuals, and that was sent out, and I'm sure everybody was watching and such like that. But the reason I kind of mention that story now is I learned, kind of looking back on that, that events can affect my consciousness, and that I can live in different worlds in my mind, that I can focus on myself if I want to. What's going to happen to me? Worry. Am I going to be okay? Should I have left? I don't know. And there were probably 80 people on our floor that day, and I think 4 of us stayed in the building because they shut it down. A lot of them spent the whole day trying to get home because roads and trains are all closed down. So they were just kind of stuck in a train station, trying to figure out what to do, probably panicking mostly. I could think of myself. There was that kind of place of consciousness, that ring of consciousness. And then I could also expand it a little and think of others in my life. And that was a different thought, and it was a different experience, and it was a different consciousness. And then I could start to expand that and think about a larger group. And then I also had the ability to think about everybody. And each one of those thoughts had a different experience and a different feeling. And I'm seeing that similar to what's happening now. I don't know specifically, I'm sorry, about the all the details of what's going on in Cambridge, but it's not so pleasant here in New York. I'm just outside of New York City, North Shore, Queens, and Long Island, if that makes any sense to you. And there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of quietness going on, and we've got the governor and the president and the mayor all kind of saying what we should be doing and such. But whatever medical is, it's overwhelmed. Horrible situation for them to be in, but they're very much heroes here, taking on kind of what to do. They're building hospitals in Central Park, and so it's very serious. But I also see that we can start to change our consciousness at this time, and that we can start to, what can I do? Thinking, and that gives me a different feeling from, well, what's happening all around me, does this one have it? I mean, we're starting to look at everybody now like they're serial killers. Oh, that one might have it, avoid them, what's going to happen? Don't look at that person. It's a little peculiar, and but that's the safety that we're supposed to be creating for ourselves now, and it's good advice. I belong to the center here in Great Neck, Global Harmony House, regional headquarters here for the United States, and so I'm a block away, so I go back and forth, but we're closed and nobody's there, and so that recognition that I can still create the thoughts that I want to. And one of the things that I want to kind of piggyback on is what Prashant was saying, is that how do we see ourselves and what are the thoughts that we want? And part of the practice that I've been doing and would recommend is that knowing that you have a choice of your thoughts and that each of those choices has a consequence is to start to create a safe space. And that could be your home, that could be your house, that could be your apartment, that could be your room. It could also be your mind. And so what am I holding in my mind? How do I see myself that way? And what do I fill that with? I'm creating a sanctuary. I'm creating a space that when I visit that, and I have choice of changing self, friends, family, world, universe, come back to what's inside my interior. What do I actually hold in there? And some of those qualities. Do I hold an atmosphere of peace? Do I make it clean and tidy? Is that something that I feel comfortable when I enter? These are, some of the things I want to do. And it might take some house cleaning, some sanctuary cleaning, some clean out my mind type of a thinking. But when I recognize that I can choose to think about my inner world, that spiritual, was mentioned, soul qualities, I believe, that I can start to encourage those, nurture those, build those, and therefore I can always stay there, visit there. It's a little like what I'm doing now. I'm at home right now, but I'm connecting to the outside world. And I haven't left the relative comfort that I'm in and the safety that I'm in, even though I'm interacting with the outside world through technology. And the body's a great instrument, it's technology. And so I'm inside of that also. And I'm going to interact using that technology to connect to the world. But why would I let what I see be dominant in how I want to feel? Why not recognize that I've created a safe space, a peaceful place, a loving place inside of me? It takes practice, takes watching the thoughts, directing those thoughts, having that experience. But when I start to do that, then what that allows me to think about is the subject I guess we're talking about is, what is my future about then? And what I find about future is that we're living in the future of our past right now. That this is a future of some time previous. And when I start to recognize that my immediate thought is critical to my future, what do I want to fill my future with? Do I want my future to be filled with peace, love, joy, happiness, contentment, strength, perseverance, patience? Do I practice holding that, feeling that? Because if I practice that, that's what's going to grow. That's what I'm going to start to see. That's how I'm going to act. And that's what's going to happen. And I find that my future is very dependent on the thought that I have now. That I am having that awareness that as I think, as I choose, as I have that ability to move from place to place and understand that, that gives me the recognition that I'm critical in my own life, in my own health, my own future. And so that's why I've chosen to create, healthy habits, healthy thoughts, positive, optimistic. I find that having that energy and that awareness isn't artificial at all, but it is energizing. That when I take in good food for my body, the body responds well. When I take in good thoughts for my spirit, I respond, I'm a better person. I'm what I can be. I know sometimes, not regularly, but it's really hard to do something. Have you ever been tired mentally? Laying in bed, and it's like, oh, I should get out, but then I'd have to kind of throw this sheet off, and then I'd have to figure out where my right leg is, and I'd have to put that outside the bed, and then I'd have to figure out where my left leg is and swing that over, and then I'd have to sit on the edge of the bed, and then I'd have to kind of stand up, and that's hard work if you're mentally tired. But if you're enthusiastic, boom, you're just out and gone. So I find that filling the self with power, energy, enthusiasm, based on what Prashant was saying as truth, that sense of who am I? What are my aspects? What are some of my qualities? And when I start to hold on to that, then I'm able to experience that, fill myself with that, nurture that, act with that. And I'm hoping that you've had some time to bump into some of those ideas and concepts about action, because when we do something, there tends to be a response to that. And so my future, how to create a good future, how to create the future I want, is based on that awareness of my actions, thoughts now. When we create that now, we get that in the future. And part of that is the experience of, how do I see myself? What do I want to be? How do I experience that? How do I practice that? How do I train myself? And that's what I'll become. Some of you might be medical. I'm not sure who the total audience is here. Sorry for that. But you get better by doing things. Those that might be healthcare, doctor, nurse, practitioners, all you did to get there was spend time doing it. You read things about it, you talked to people about it, you practiced it, and the more you practice, pretty soon, that's what you became. And so that's how I find my meditation, my practice on a spiritual level also. The more I think about it, the more I hold those thoughts, the more I allow them to enter me and create the subsequent feelings from thoughts of well-being, I feel good. And now that's more natural than it used to be. I don't have as much struggle. There's not as much space. I can recognize negativity and weakness quicker, and I can get out of it faster. And so the future that I've created is based on what I've got. And my experience over time is that the more I practice, the better I get. One final little thought, I'm watching my time, I hope that's all right, is that it's an understanding, if you can know time travel at all, that nobody from the future has come to tell me I'm doing something wrong. So I must be doing most things fairly well. You can consider that too. And I'm hopeful that the conversation will continue, and I appreciate being invited to share a little of my visible guestness with you today, and we'll be in touch.